whatever. Look,
you go
I can
slumming
blow
when you hang
smoke.
with me.
You know, I brought Jesus, and that's really my claim to fame today, is that I am with the Christ, and you know, it's not about me, it's about him. So anyway, but yeah, I can hang with you guys for a little bit.
That's another thing that throws me. You said that you needed a Jesus action figure, so you went down to the store. I live in Dallas, Texas. We can't go down to the store and buy a Jesus Christ action figure.
Well, there's a local store, and that's all they had. They call it Christian and Office Supply, and it was the first time I'd gone into that store as a non-believer. And when I was in radio, we used to do live broadcasts there. We were always like, come join us. We're going to be out there for 3 hours at this store. We're going to be giving away free music and blah, blah, blah. Well, it had been years and years and years and years, and I needed Jesus for my video. So I go in, and I honestly felt like these are the money changers. When I walked in, I thought, these are all good people. They all believe in what they're doing. I was disgusted. The testaments, right? The little breath mints with the scriptures on them. You got how many different kinds of crosses and crucifixes. You got your Jesus oil paintings for only $155 on sale. You got Jesus this and Jesus that and the action figure. And I thought, this is commerce. People are
velvet? Are those the black velvet paintings where Jesus is virtually indistinguishable from Elvis?
This was not that. I know what you're talking about, where he looks like the Jesus from Jesus Christ Superstar. This was not it. This was a whole other deal. But they had a whole assortment of Jesus merchandise. And I honestly thought to myself, this is just money, And then I plunked down my $20 for Jesus, and I brought him home. So,
well,
anyway.
You know what, Seth, this is actually more than just money, and I'd like to take a moment to talk about that. You remember the original Lewis Carroll in Through the Looking Glass? They did stories about Alice in Wonderland. In the original story, she has this conversation with the Red Queen, wherein she's taking the rational position, talking about how you can't believe in impossible. You can't make yourself believe in impossible things. And the Red Queen says, "Well, I believe as many as 6 impossible things before breakfast." Well, they adapted that into a movie, as they've done many times, but most recently, they have a live-action movie with the guy that played the pirate. I can't remember his name. Johnny Depp, right? He's playing the Mad Hatter. That movie.
Sorry, Aaron, I have to cut through you.
What?
If you read the text as you ought to on the Magic Sandwich Show, you'll see that Jessica has actually posted a comment saying, "When should I hang up?" Please, Jessica, stick with us. We were expecting in this hour to have James Randi with us. It looks as if we're having difficulty getting in touch with him, so please don't feel under any pressure.
Well, then let me
say it this way. Let's say, Jessica, why don't you stay with us as long as you have time? I know you've got a day ahead of you, but if you've ever got to opt out, just wave at us and split. But yeah, it's kind of nice having her along. So. Yeah,
she doesn't talk much though. That's the frustrating thing. You always feel awkward.
Oh, no, I don't know what to say. I don't want to interrupt.
Well,
you've got to interrupt us, otherwise you'll never get a word in. Seth,
he's a professional broadcaster, and I'm a ham.
And they tell me that I talk too much, so just interrupt us. Don't feel bad about it.
Yeah, well, see, the thing I wanted to illustrate was if you had seen that movie, the live-action movie with Johnny Depp as the Mad Hatter, in that movie, Alice takes the opposite role, where in order to succeed, she has to make herself believe in impossible things. And then she starts listing 6 impossible things that she can make herself believe at the early part of the day. So the message that was in Lewis Carroll's original story has been completely reversed. And what you see with the story with the money changers in the Bible and all, that also has been completely reversed. Now, when I was a child, I remember people telling me that Satanism, that the devil and devil worshippers and everything, they would take everything that was true and pervert it reverse, right? Turn it all backwards. And so as I argue with creationists in particular, all the statistics are exactly like what you were just describing a little bit ago. Everything is reversed, where they talk about how all scientists are flooding away from evolutionary theory and abandoning it in droves, when in fact, if silver is pure because it's 99.44%. Then we have 99.86% of all the earth and life scientists adopting or adhering to evolution. Then we have a pure consensus. The entire scientific community supports evolution, but that's not what they report to you. They report, as you said, that it's that there's some tiny percentage, sometimes even a fraction of a percent of people in the United States who are actually atheist, when, as you said, the statistics are closer to 18%. And 15 years ago, it was 5%. So it was never as low as they were saying, and the trend is going the opposite direction. I was recently in a discussion with someone who is a diehard creationist, someone I personally know, and his worldview, for lack of another explanation, was exactly the reverse of everything that I could show to be true. He challenged me on one point, for example, when he said that, so you think that things are getting better? Yes, I think that things are getting better. And he tries to interrupt by saying, oh, it's all going bad. I mean, people are turning away from God and crime rate is rising and all these things are terrible. All these terrible things are happening. This is how we know that we're headed toward the end times. And I say that children don't work in factories anymore and they're taking music lessons instead of being out on the street because we have compulsory schools. Until your faction undermines it, until you manage to get rid of public schools, until you manage to deprive the country of our Department of Education, we still have it and we are still doing well. Religion is doing everything it can to pervert things so that it turns into these gloom and doom times, but the fact of the matter is that things are getting better. Our lifestyle is getting better. The quality of life is in general improving, and the only obstacle to that are the religious right. And of course, I'm trying to explain this to a guy who has an absolutely reversed view on every possible statistic. Everything, it's like you turn all the charts upside down, literally, just to hold to this belief that they have. And I don't understand, how can you believe in 2012 that things are not better than they were in 1912, or that things are not better than they were in 1812? Do they have no concept of history at all? And I know, sorry, Jessica, I know you're just bursting
into this. You're never going to get a word in.
I think that's good for her to see. In fact, the only challenge is that because of the fidelity of the video, I can't see the vein coming out of Aaron's head when he starts to really get passionate. You give him another 5 minutes, he's going to totally pop an O-ring, and you'll see that on YouTube for years. Somebody stop him for his own safety. He's gone on a tangent, people. So,
I just got a phone
if everyone's happy, shall we open up for anyone that might want to call in? If you do, send a contact request to Magic Sandwich Show on Skype. Is everyone happy with that? I'm obviously, if we haven't got James, we'll fill in this hour.
We actually might have James. I just got an email from him.
Oh, okay. Well, let's see.
A bit of a surprise. A little late, but that's better than never.
Well, he's getting on a bit. But yeah, even with James, we might take callers. So if you would like to appear either with Seth,
well, if Randy appears, I'm gonna split. Okay. Because honestly, I want to hear what he has to say anyway. You don't need me for sure.
Well, don't go just yet because we don't know that we've got him.
I didn't know anything about James Randi outside of the Carson stuff he had done with Uri Geller back in the 70s, and the Peter Popoff thing, where he had gone in and the evangelist Peter Popoff was using electronics to pretend he was hearing the voice of God. And he had people fill out these prayer cards with their names and information, address, all that stuff, and they would turn it in at the beginning of the healing service, and then they would go in and Popoff would come out and say, there's a Richard out here. Richard, well, that sounds kind of like him. Richard has a back problem. And all of a sudden, this dude named Richard would automatically assume that Jesus had given Popoff the info. Well, duh. James Randi goes in with some electronic scanning equipment and finds that that Popoff's wife's back there reading it into an earpiece in his ear, and just totally blew it. Now, that is one of Randy's claims to fame, and yet somehow Peter Popoff, the evangelist, is still kicking, still has a ministry website, and is still a millionaire today. How is this possible? I just don't get it.
He went bankrupt about a year after Randy exposed him. He didn't really resurface for a number of years, but you're quite right. I've spent a bit of time looking into Randy. In the last 4 or 5 years, he's been averaging over 20 million a year. And the reason I was looking behind me is because I've got, oh, there it is.
Randy has, or you mean Pop-Off?
I go to his website occasionally just to see what he's up to, and I fill in a prayer request. That lot, which is only the contents and the return envelopes, probably arrived within this period of less than 6 months. If you go to his site, you'll get something probably every 2 weeks.
I had a coworker
That costs
who
him
has
money.
a gag.
Why doesn't everyone go to his site and ask for something?
Got, I think, a vial of holy water or a cloth or something, and she got so much mail that she couldn't get off the list. I mean, it was like almost harassment, you know. So
I meant to put those on the eBay auction, but there's some holy water in there, but I can't be bothered to look for it. But what do you do, Seth?
Well, you know, I had a chance to speak with James Randi on a podcast last year, and he has this brilliant term for them. He calls them the unsinkable rubber ducks. These are people, I think, who believe in belief. And I think people like Pop-Off and many who are not just in religion, but in any money-based enterprise where they're out selling something, the snake oil, the homeopathy or what have you. I think you prey on the weak, you prey on the lazy, you prey on the vulnerable. And
I think I have a recollection that I may have told you this story before, but I actually tried to have him banned from this country for television broadcasts. And he was actually banned in, I think, 2007 by Ofcom, which is the body that oversees broadcasts. And what he did, he went to Iceland and got a European license. And by virtue of that, he can now broadcast back into this country. And he's got round the regulatory body. And I thought, this can't be right. So I got in touch with my local MP, I got in touch with the minister in Parliament who's responsible for it, and they just said, no, nothing we can do.
Jessica, do you have any background
the Iceland
in
broadcasting authorities? I got in touch with them, and they said, oh yeah, we'll look into this. Nothing. What can you do?
Jessica, did you have you said it was Catholic. You must look at like the Pentecostal phenomenon, like the Peter Pop-Off, where they're all, you know, they got the organ going, you know, after every scripture, and they got the tambourines, you know, and they're like speaking in tongues and yes, praise Jesus, and they're jumping all over. I mean, you've seen this, right, on YouTube or on television? No?
Yeah, of course I have. Everyone's
Does it look like, I mean, do you look at it and say, this is a circus? Or is it, you know, just another flavor of what you came from? Because you look at the Catholic Church with the funny hats and the incense and all that stuff, you know, and it's pretty much just as bizarre, just in a different way. What do you think of when you see all this stuff?
Actually, my friends, a lot of my friends are Catholic. I've been to a few of their confirmations back when I was in like 10th grade, and it is usually weird. It doesn't really. I mean, even just as an atheist, it feels bizarre. Even if I am familiar with a lot of the stuff in the Catholic Church, I never went very much. But my church happens to be very traditional, and they did. It's a Catholic Armenian church. My great grandmother was Armenian, and so now that's like part of the family's church. So we went there, and they speak in Armenian first of all, so I had no idea what they were talking about. And then their baptisms, they strip the baby completely and fully submerge the baby in water, and the baby's screaming and crying. And I remember watching my friend's younger sister get baptized in a Catholic church, and they just went over and put a little bit of water on her forehead, and it was completely different than what I was used to, and it is a little bit horrifying. But yeah, it's strange how normal these people seem to think that it's normal to take a little baby, take all its clothes off, and dump it in the bathtub. That's not normal, and if you think it is, then obviously there's something wrong.
We should pass an offering plate, DPR. I mean, if the church does it, you know, we could, like, we promise blessings in your life if you will give sacrificially to this message right now.
Well, you say that, Seth. I mean, I think that particularly yourself, as eloquent as you are, you could make an absolute killing being a preacher or a pastor.
What? Wait, what
Well,
is that supposed to mean?
You've got knowledge of the Bible. You've got that lovely voice. You've got that charisma. You could make a killing out of exploiting people. Why don't you do it? Because you're a decent human being.
Yeah, Matt Dillahunty told me that if he were to do a deconversion, he was just talking about the amount of money that he could earn for himself after having been the host of the Atheist Experience for so long. If he were to suddenly say that he's, been drawn back into the fold, that he found evidence that compelled him to believe again, that he'd make millions and he'd have a giant mega ministry. It'd be no problem for somebody like him to do at all.
Well, Matthew is a biblical name, so maybe it's destiny. The prodigal will one day return, and then he will go out and spread the good news.
So is Seth.
You know what it's like being an atheist with a biblical name? It's like walking into a room and people say, "So you don't believe any of the stories in the Bible?" And I'm like, "No, I don't." So you speak out loudly, overtly to help defeat religion. Everywhere you go, yes, I do. What's your name? And it's like saying, Hezekiah, Ezekiel.
Jessica is a biblical name as well, isn't it?
I think it is, yeah.
As is Aaron.
Aaron's a biblical. Oh, Aaron, yeah.
Yeah.
No, as is AronRa. Now, give us an update, AronRa. What's happening with Randy, if anything?
Well, he sent me a message. Apparently he's I don't know, gathering himself or something. He wasn't informed. Perhaps maybe there's a time zone issue. I don't know what the story is. But he
Okay,
did
well,
get
in
back
that case, let's have a call-in show, and we'll wait for Matt to turn up.
This visual.
He'll give me an opportunity to say a few thank yous and highlight eBay items. If you would like to join, and Seth, please feel free to go whenever you wish. Similarly with Jessica, it would be lovely if you can stay. Let's have a call-in. If you want to appear, ask a question, chat about anything that's been said, send a contact request to Magic Sandwich Show. We'll have a chat. There is one thing that I would like to say about the eBay auction. I don't know how well you're going to be able to see this. You might just be able to see that in this tube, there's a small piece of silicon. And what's written on that is the highest bidder's request. And it's in, I can't remember, it's like 100 atoms or 100 nanometers or whatever, I can't recall. But he requested a message. This was auctioned on eBay during it finished during the first hour of the show, which seems like days ago, but was only like yesterday. You can't see it, obviously, but I do have. This is what the highest bidder wanted to be printed, and that was what was printed. That's an image of it. We'll get a better one for him. But also on that piece of silicon, they've included the Nottingham University logo and the MSF logo as well. There is another one on eBay at the moment. There's only one bid on it, and it's at $70. This one went for 102. So if you would like to have a message written on a piece of silicon so small that you'll never be able to see it and you won't know it's there, but just be it is, with images of it, that's one of the items that is still going on eBay.
Yeah, I've got something that's on eBay too. When I did the video wearing this shirt, I don't know if you can see that. Let me see if I can adjust the screen properly.
It's pointless because your camera's frozen.
Is it?
Yes, but what I can say is, Kirk, can you just repeat the price that your song went for? Because I saw it pass through in the comments, and I didn't have an opportunity to comment on it. But it was, come on, Kirk, tell us, what did your song go for? Is he still? Yeah, he's still in the room. Kirk, are you awake? 273. That's absolutely fantastic. Thank you very much for that, Kirk. Aaron, turn your camera off and on and see if that helps.
Well, I'm trying, but the camera won't turn on again. There we go.
And
Just took a minute.
I really regret not having seen what non-stamp collectors three pieces went for, because I have to say that between him and Dark Matter over the last 4 years, they're probably, between the two of them, probably responsible for about 10% of everything that we've ever raised for the charity.
Had I had the foresight, I would have asked Jessica to sign some devil horns or something, you know, and put those on eBay with the evil little thing.
Oh,
But I didn't even think to do it. You know, so
Yeah,
I
somebody
have
was
signed
passing
a
around.
shirt.
When we
Like
went
the
to
evil
the
thing.
Houston Free Thought Convention, they were passing around a Gideon Bible, and they were having all of us sign that.
you know, we had that happen at the Oklahoma Free Thought Convention. I think they had you and Matt and me, and everybody assigned the Bible. There's a surreal experience.
Well, again, another thing that Kirk did was to take a copy of God Is Not Great to the Reason Rally. And again, Kirk, help me out on that. That went for over 300, didn't it? 350 something? And that was signed by the likes of, well, you and me, Seth. Yeah, I think
What?
the pink T-shirt is still up for auction.
Yeah, I autographed the back. I donated to MSF on Blog TV, and all I got was this lousy T-shirt from AronRa.
Love it. To see pink on Aaron,
Oh, wow.
a man
And let
who
me-
is
no,
defined.
Seth, stop. Right, there's a book. It's still up on eBay. You've still got a chance. It's now at $455. It's signed by, I know it's signed by you. It's signed by Aaron, it's signed by me, it's signed by Thunder and Kirk himself and PJ and Verity Factor and all sorts of people. There are about 30 people that have signed it. $455. Wow. Gotta love that. Sorry, Seth, I interrupted.
Not at all. I'm just blathering on, which is really what I do. But I was just saying that to see Aaron, who, when I see him, he just cuts it. Those of you who know Aaron know that he's a teddy bear. I mean, he loves people and people love him. But at first blush, when you first meet him, your first impression is that he cuts a very imposing figure. Plus, he's usually in all black. He's got the long hair, and he's just got a very and he looks like whatever he says is true. Like whatever emanates forth from the mouth of Aaron shall be set in stone forevermore. That's how we go. And just so to see him in a pink T-shirt, to me, I think he pulled it off somehow. You know, somehow the man in black managed to pull it off. So my hope is that particular item on the store raises some serious coin for a worthy cause.
I remember the first time I ever saw Aaron on a video, and it was when
I'm
he was
sorry.
at the DMCA Abuse channel, and about 10 people on YouTube made short clips to put together. And it was at a time when Aaron had not shown his face on any of his videos, much like Thunder hadn't and Potholer. And there was this short clip, and he's standing there. He looks like something, the High Plains Drifter, whatever, with his hat on. And he just says, "Please support our cause." And it was DJarm67 who was organizing it. And he and I looked at this. I thought, fuck me, he's a tank. And that's where the Texan Tank comes from. First time we saw him. But
They call you
I'm
the
actually
Texan
taller than
Tank?
the Texan Tank.
Yeah. How do you live up to stuff like that? I mean, there's a picture that was taken of the wedding party. Matt Dillahunty and his wife. I performed their wedding ceremony, and I had my hat on, and I had a duster on, and a bowler tie, because it's Texas. And the picture, somebody put a caption on that says, "I don't know if Aaron is going to officiate a wedding or gun down Lee Van Cleef."
And I had a brief exchange with Matt shortly after that, and I said it looked like a great wedding. And Matt's only comment was, "Yeah, shame Aaron didn't take the sunglasses off."
I'm sorry, you officiated the wedding with shades on? No, wait a minute. Hang on just a second. Now, Jessica, you want to listen closely to this, because I'm gonna trap Aaron into telling the story. But I did a podcast a while back, and we were talking about non-religious weddings. I had a call from a guy who was a shaman, and he had attended weddings in what they called being sky clad. Now, I'm a corn-fed Midwestern Protestant ex-Christian type guy. Skyclad, what's that? And according to the shaman, he said, everybody at the wedding was naked. And Aaron informed me that he had you officiated a Skyclad event, or were you in attendance?
No, he was one of the participants.
So
he's gone offline again. Jessica, I've just been sent a message by someone. I don't know who.
I mean, did you have on? Did you have on anything at all?
A Skyclad wedding means. I did have on something. Yes, I did. I had these bracers, these armbands in black studded leather, rather like what they wore on Judas Priest. That's what I had.
Jessica, moving on to a more suitable.
They didn't
topic,
serve food.
I'm told. Can anyone hear me?
I can't hear you. You guys shut up. Hang on.
I got a message from someone saying that you had signed a T-shirt and that I was to ask you about that. Have you any idea what they're referring to?
Who are you speaking to?
Jessica.
I signed a T-shirt once for a group to auction off, I believe. An E Little Thing T-shirt. Or I guess they want me to sign it. Yeah, they're going to have me sign it and then they're going to auction it off. But I don't think it's up for auction yet. I could probably auction off my own E Little Thing T-shirt.
You could send an email to the email address I'm just about to give you,
Okay.
and we could put that up on auction. How about
Well,
that?
I certainly spread the word on my pages if she was to elect to do so. I think that'd be something people would certainly want, and they'd want to support Jessica. That'd be a way to obviously support Doctors Without Borders. So if you guys decide to do that, just drop me a line, let me know.
Certainly.
Well, what
Jessica,
colour?
the
What
one
colour
question
is
that
it?
I did want to ask you, if it's all right, what are you actually studying at your college?
I'm not in college yet.
I'm
I
sorry.
have
Sorry.
private tutor for my last year of high school, technically.
Right. What are you going to study?
That is the question I get everywhere I go. I don't know. I don't actually know yet. I haven't decided. I think the time of my life where I should have been making that decision was kind of shadowed in other things. So I have to do some thinking about that. And a lot of people think I'm going to say law or politics. It's possible, but not likely.
Lawyers are incredibly boring people, trust me.
I feel the same way, although my lawyer
What?
is amazing.
You're done.
What do they say about lawyers?
Very...
90% of lawyers give the rest a bad name. I mean, that's exactly how we feel about it, DPR.
Until you need one, Seth, then suddenly your opinion changes.
I'm the same way, most people are that way with police. They run around and they're like, oh, how fast are you going, honey? Make sure you're on the speed limit. Everybody's wary until they have a crisis, and that's the first number they call, the first thing they do. So it's true.
I'm not sure that anyone wants to. Let's have a look. Has anyone sent me a contact request? No one wants to talk to us. Those are very old ones.
I took your advice and went to a lower res camera, but it doesn't seem to have made any difference. DPR is always complaining that it is the quality of my camera that screws up these broadcasts and why it doesn't work. It's too good a camera, and that's why it doesn't work.
I've got a problem with, I try to adjust down the resolution settings so it's not feeding so much res up, up the pipe, and I'm just not. I feel like it's still choppy, it's still static, staccato. It's not really fluid. And being from radio, not TV, especially blog TV, I have no idea how to optimize any of that stuff. Meanwhile, I look at some of the other feeds up here, and DPR looks super. He looks smooth. I don't get that.
I don't appear well in color. I just look reasonably okay in black and white. Can I raise a topic? It's one that we bounced off a few people during the course of the last 24 hours. I'd like to bounce it off you as well. Particularly with Eugenie Scott, actually, because we were talking about the difference that she has in her view of religion and Richard Dawkins has. Hers is much more compliant in that she sees religion as not necessarily being harmful. Dawkins more sorry to use the word, strident view is that he cares more passionately about the truth than what's comfortable, to put it in those terms. Zongitz Chris has tagged me in a video, the first few questions of which are fairly easy to answer, but the last one is one that I've always struggled with, and it's basically, is it bad for someone to have religious beliefs if they don't interfere with your life, but they have faith, they believe in whatever? I don't know. I think there are arguments either way, but I'd love to know what Jessica's view is and what your view is, Seth.
Well, I think what you said there is if it doesn't interfere with your life in any way. I don't think that you can really. I don't think you can really have a delusion that doesn't interfere with anybody else's life. I
agree with you so much. Thank you. Do go on.
I think that if you are delusional, if you believe things that aren't true, then to a degree, even if it's as slight as being a person in the community who isn't going to help when we do have an actual problem, you know, that does interfere with everybody. If there's like a meteor coming towards the earth and they're just going to sit around and pray, that is detrimental. And to a degree, I think that being under the impression of something that isn't true, I think it's definitely harmful. And I don't think that the human race as a whole, like collective people, I do think it's worth trying to get people to think more critically, to think more freely, because delusions are harmful.
They have, I think I'd put it this way, they've got the potential to be harmful. They might not necessarily be. I mean, a belief in fairies, I can't see how that could really impact in any way.
Well, and then I guess if the more people who believe in something that isn't true, or who are okay with believing in something that isn't true because it's not necessarily hurting anybody, that still, it makes this world a place where there is less free thinking, and we need that. You know, it needs to be encouraged. It needs to be kind of not really as accepted as it is to believe in something that is clearly not true.
I mean, I certainly would probably differentiate between religious beliefs and what I would call innocuous beliefs, such as fairies. I think that that sort of belief does, as you say, it does have an impact on the way that a person
may I jump in?
And by virtue of that, it has an impact on society. So I'm totally agree with you there, Seth.
I'm not trying to shill my blog, but I write things like this down because I'm like you hear the same question so often and often, over and over, that you actually will put your thoughts down. And so if you want to go to the thinkingatheist.com editor's blog, you'll see a blog post called "Why Can't You Leave Religion Alone?" And I'll just paraphrase, but I mean, when's the last time you went into a hotel room and instead of a Gideon Bible, there was a copy of Richard Dawkins' The God Delusion or Hitchens' God Is Not Great? When's the last time an atheist knocked on your door with the message of humanism? And if you did not accept that message, they imply that you might end up tortured for eternity. When's the last time someone took a mission trip to go to, third world areas to spread the message of atheism? When's the last atheist temple erected in your neighborhood? Do people hand out atheist tracts that talk about your non-belief? I mean, what we are doing here is a response to a very overt religious message. Religion started it. And the reason that we have sites like mine and sites like Jessica's and shows like the Magic Sandwich Show and what have you, is because somebody finally is holding up a hand and saying, we have better evidence. This cannot go unchecked. And religion is charged with replication. It is like a virus. It must replicate. Go ye into all the world and preach the gospel to all the nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Ghost. They are not simply encouraged. They are compelled and commanded to go and change hearts and minds. And I think the second, by action or inaction, religion influences someone else, or any belief, whether it's a belief in fairies or what have you. Robert Greene Ingersoll has a great quote that I sort of have used to define my mission. He says, "The more false we destroy, the more room we make for the true." And in my mind, I think the more we clear out the junk, the detritus, the bad science, the pseudoscience, the mythology, the indoctrination, the more we wipe that out, the more room we make for the true. And so for what it's worth, that's kind of the tack that I take whenever I produce videos or do anything like that or participate in shows like this, is because I want to see the false sort of moved out so that we can have more space for the good stuff. You're welcome.
Well, it was interesting. We had Professor Chris French on earlier, who's a psychologist who looks into why people believe in weird things. And after the hour, I felt even more pessimistic about the future of mankind, because the reasons that he advanced are so much a part of humanity and evolution as well. I don't think we're going to get rid of it that quickly. We're making progress. He did leave on an optimistic note, that things are changing, hopefully for the better. But this is something. Actually, Seth, you might be a very good person to answer this question. We were talking actually after we stopped the hour. We carried on a Skype conversation, and I said to him, "Look, there are times when I actually seriously have doubts about whether I'm missing out on something here, because I think that there are theists who genuinely, when they say, 'I feel Jesus, I feel the presence of God,' they're not lying about it. They genuinely do feel that. And I'm thinking, well, I haven't. Am I missing out? Am I the one that's wrong? You, for a substantial period of your life, were a theist. When people say they feel the presence of God, can you describe that? And do you look back on it and think, well, it was just an illusion or delusion?
Well, Levin and Kramer have a book about how perceptions are used in criminal court cases and how eyewitness testimony is completely unreliable, because what people perceive, what they think they see, and what they really see are quite often not the same. And in the church, perception is king. In fact, when you are in the debate arena, and I know many of you are, and Jessica and DPR have probably put out a fact. And at the end of the conversation, if your facts are solid and the religious wall cannot penetrate, the fallback position is, I just know in my heart. I had a personal experience. I had a religious experience. I spoke in tongues. I felt the presence of God. And I think for many people, this is projection. It's emotion. It's you go into a church service, especially these days, where they have the best of the best. I mean, you go into a church service here, at least in the Bible Belt, in a mainstream Protestant church, many of them have a full stage, full band, with great musicians. They have impeccable lighting, stage lighting, like concert lighting. They have fog machines. They have a concert quality sound system. They have packaged it to be something that fills your heart, and you hear the music and you're connected with other people and you have a sense of purpose and you have a mission, and you can convince yourself of a great many things. But I don't see, I perceive, I feel, I felt, I don't see that as a convincing argument, because perception is so easily tainted. And I don't think it's really a defeatable argument. I can't look at you and say, you didn't feel that. I mean, that's not accurate. You
I got to
may
jump in
have.
on this too. When I first met Seth, I mean, the speech that I gave at the OK Free Thought Convention was how I had once had this religious experience with, being reborn in Christ, and then a couple of years later, or a year or so later, I'm having the same experience multiple times over neo-pagan meditation, where I believe that I was encountering other spirits of other origins. And it's really easy to psych yourself up if the ambiance is right, if you've got the firelight, if you've got the drums, and you've got all this going on, whatever you already believe can be easily encouraged to where you will actually perceive it. And I had demonstrated that for other people. I was able to bring fear or bring, feelings of love or whatever. It's not that difficult to manipulate people.
That's it. I'm doing the rest of the show skyclad.
Seth,
I'm going skyclad, people.
You criticize lawyers, but I'm going to be a lawyer here. I don't think you actually answered the question. You explained circumstances in which you might have a feeling, but I was asking about you personally and whether you actually, in your days of being atheist, whether you felt the presence of God, and what does it mean to feel the presence of God?
Let's ask Jesus. Jesus.
John.
Hey, let's ask Jesus.
John 3:16. God loved the world so much that he sent his own...
Yeah, shut up. All right, shut up. Shut up! So, I believe this, and this is just one opinion, is that when I had the benefit of having a kind of a more conservative father, and then my mother came from more of an Assembly of God or Pentecostal background. Now, he was like ex-Lutheran, and he wasn't really Baptist, but they did not speak in tongues. They were reserved, and they would go, and many of those churches they didn't clap in church. You didn't clap. You just said amen after something happened. Meanwhile, my mother came from the opposite side, where it was constant applause and wailing and singing and amen, amen. You're standing up, you're speaking tongues, all that kind of stuff. And I managed to see both worlds, and I developed an opinion that people end up in a church environment that happens to fit their personality. So I was a conservative guy. I was not an overt. I didn't like to go out and sing and dance and carry on. And so I naturally gravitated to a Baptist kind of an environment where we sang and we did the hymns and whatnot, but there was no overt craziness. That was where I was most comfortable. And when I felt Jesus, I wanted to feel him more than I did. Like, is this Jesus? Is this, please Lord, come into my heart, and then you find yourself saying the prayer of forgiveness. Please God, forgive me of all my sins. Please cleanse me. Please, reset the slate. I don't want to go to hell, but you're always convincing yourself. You're playing a little mind game with yourself.
What I find really interesting is when you hear people who have changed or have contemplated changing religion. I don't want to criticize him because he was part of the charity event on the second hour, Together for Peace, Jack. I remember having a conversation with him and him saying, well, I thought about this particular religion, and I think at one point he even said that he thought about becoming a Muslim. And the way in which he expressed it, for me, he was going window shopping.
Yeah.
It wasn't what is true, it was what suits me best.
I call it the buffet of belief, and you're sampling, right? You're on a quest to make the square peg fit into a round hole. And so it doesn't work, so you move to the next one. But I'll tell you, in the religious construct, you never really think, I should walk away from all of it. You're thinking, well, should I go to a Baptist church? Or maybe I'll be more comfortable at a Methodist. Or maybe I should be a Catholic, go sit next to Jessica and her ilk over there, and we'll have the incense and the funny hats. But
it's similar, isn't it, to the cherry picking from the Bible? Isn't it odd that they select bits that happen to fit in comfortably with their belief system? I'm acutely aware that we're leaving Jessica somewhat out of the conversation, and I'd love to hear her views on it as well.
I think it's always interesting when people say that they're going to convert, like from one belief to another. I actually have a friend who was an atheist for a while and went back to Christianity, and I was so confused by that because I found so much more comfort and clarity in finally realizing that this stuff wasn't real, and that for me was like, okay, well now I can stop here, I'm where I should be. But he converted back, and I wonder to a degree if that was family pressure. But it does seem like he convinced himself almost that it was like the right thing to do or something. And I can't understand it, because I never really had, when I say I was religious, I never had that feeling of God or Jesus. I didn't really do too much thinking about it. It wasn't like I lost my religion. I just kind of realized that I was an atheist.
Yeah, you
So
realize you don't have it. I don't know what age it was for you, but for me it was about 9. And people ask, "Oh, was it difficult?" And it's like, no, it wasn't, because, in fact, I never had it. I never had this feeling of connection with a God or anything. It's just something that I was taught. Sorry, do go.
Yeah, it's definitely easier, I think, when you're not losing something, but you're kind of realizing something, like something that you always kind of knew, but you finally decided to admit it to yourself.
Well, here's the song and dance that many of us will do when we're in the church. You're in the church and you decide you don't like the or they get a new pastor, you don't like the new pastor, or you don't like the way the worship music is going on, or you end up in a disagreement with somebody on the board of directors, or you got some reason that you just it's usually conflict based. Well, it's not somebody ticked you off. It's, I feel the Lord leading me into another direction. I feel the Lord maybe leading us elsewhere. So then you go out and you sample, right? God doesn't cut through the detritus and say, "Hey, you need to attend the First Church of the What's Happening Now over at 7th and Lewis." No. God doesn't do that. What God lets you do is the same thing you would do at christianmingle.com, right? You go out and you sample everything, right? And then all of a sudden you find a spot where you feel comfortable and you're like, "I feel the Lord has led us here." Well, essentially, no. No, you found a spot you were comfortable in and you projected God onto it. And that's the MO of most religious people, in my opinion.
Well, the thing that I don't understand when you talk about the window shopping is like, do you take one of these, hundreds of Protestant denominations, or one of these divisions of Catholicism, or some degree of Islam, and decide that one is the absolute truth, and all of these others are only true to a degree? Why do you choose that any of them is an absolute truth? If they all shard away the way that they all do, there has to be a degree of error in all of them. And the thing that I don't understand about, with window shopping of becoming a Muslim, that means you're assuming that Islam is absolute truth over this absolute truth. Why don't people realize that there's a degree of error in everything? And so that's the way they have to view it. That's the way I viewed it, and that's what caused me to investigate all these different religions at the root, to find out what they had in common, what could possibly be true about all of them. And ultimately, that's what led me out of religion altogether.
They don't want to. They don't want to realize. They don't want to know. They feel perfectly comfortable and happy believing what they do. Even if they have a doubt in their mind, like, "Oh, maybe what I'm doing isn't right," they just try to get it out of their brain as fast as they can, because they're happy the way that they are. They enjoy.
Again, this was something that I touched upon with Professor Chris French when I said to him, "Look, so far as I can see, there are possibly three reasons why people stick with religion. One, that it's indoctrinated from a young age and it's reinforced in adult life as well. Secondly, there is this sort of like fear of death and consequences of that. And thirdly, that it's a comfort to think that there is someone in the sky looking after you, looking down and caring about what actually happens to you." And with those factors, as Jessica just said, people don't really think. They're looking for comfort. They're not looking for truth.
Yeah, and that's the thing that really bothers me. I mean, Jessica just made a very astute observation. I pointed out many times, these people don't care what the truth is. Truth, despite the fact that they always broadcast it with a capital T, truth is irrelevant.
I think one thing that the church does really well, and that many people miss when they walk away, and it's one of the things that makes it so hard, is church is great at community. It's so good. I mean, I'll tell you, there's nothing like, people on the atheist side or the non-belief, the skeptical side, will often mock the church that, they're all a bunch of haters, they're all a bunch of frothing idiots. And the truth is that most mainstream churches are pleasant places. You go, you're greeted at the door, big smile, you're given about 50 hugs by people that you know and love. And you have coffee with them and you laugh and you talk about your families, you share pictures, and you have developed a relationship with these people. And then you all go in, and you are all, there's a missional aspect to it where you feel like, man, all these people get me, and we all understand each other, we can all relate. And when you leave the church, you feel, many people feel a tremendous sense of isolation, and they miss that sense of community. And there are those who think that because you are a non-believer, any community is church, it's religion. I profoundly disagree. I believe that we are relational creatures. We need to support each other.
I disagree too, and I like what you said about the community, the sense of community. That seems to be the most important part of religion, which explains why it crops up everywhere around the world, just in human nature. And I think that in my own community, my experience with this whole thing is that people don't even so much care about what the beliefs are themselves, as long as they can kind of come together and like target something or someone together. Like it was me in my school. The target was me, and they said it was because they had faith in God and they didn't like that I was jeopardizing that, but that's not really what it was, because most of these people don't even go to church. Most of these people aren't religious on a day-to-day basis. They just wanted something to kind of all come together around and to have in common with each other.
Did you fight feelings of isolation when you were finally public and everybody knew your story? Jessica, did you feel like, I don't have anybody to talk to, or did you actually have a place to go, or a community, or friends, or how did you scratch that itch?
Isolated is a good word. My school was useless. I had 2 friends who I met in middle school who had decided they were atheists since meeting me. I don't know if it was a coincidence or not, but basically the 3 of us were best friends, and they agreed with me religiously. And I had a sense of community to a degree, but for the most part, I think isolated is a good way to describe how most atheists feel.
I have to express this view, if I may, Seth, that I struggle to identify with what you're going through in America, because in this country, religion is really it's a very quiet background noise. It doesn't play any significant role in anyone's life. Yeah, people go to church for weddings and funerals, but they don't tend to go there otherwise. In political life, the only 2 issues that religion really has got going at the moment is whether we should have bishops in the House of Lords and gay marriage. Apart from that, you won't really hear religion being discussed. So I find this idea of being isolated is not something that you'd ever come across in this country. And I feel very sorry for those, and I'm acutely aware there are a lot of them who fear telling their friends, telling their family that they're atheists, and having to keep quiet about it at work because they think they will suffer discrimination. That is disgraceful.
I got to throw something else in here.
Yeah.
DPR, you and I had discussed a challenge. Should you make a certain amount of money on this charity by a certain time? And I think we're coming into the last hour. Am I right? This is the last scheduled hour?
Yes, it is.
All right.
Have we got a sign of Dillahunty?
No, not yet. I'm sure he'll turn up though. I have here a. Did I freeze again?
Yep.
Looks like my camera froze again.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I want to say goodbye. I have to go and get on with my day.
Okay.
Thank you, Jessica.
Thanks
Thank
so much
you.
for
I
your
had a
time,
great
Jessica.
time.
And if you could sign a T-shirt for us, Seth will send you the email address that you need to send it to. But thank you very much. Big thumbs up, please, from the 337 viewers for Jessica. I wish you the very best. Thank you.
Bye.
Remarkably eloquent and mature for 17.
Yeah.
Yeah. I look at myself when I was 17 and I was like, well.
I'm not that mature now.
Yeah, it's true. It's really sad. She inspires me. I really I look at her.
Ben is posting in the chat, if you can turn your cams, both of you turn your cams off and on again. If you could, because both of you have never risen.
That's what I love about Skype.
Oh, don't talk to me about it.
Yeah, DPR, it's too bad you couldn't see it on camera. I was wondering if you'd gone to the grocery store. I have a bowl full of peppers here.
I saw you eating what appeared to be a Scotch bonnet.
No, I didn't eat it. I've been saving that. I mean, I have a banana pepper, I have a jalapeno, I have a pepperoncini, a serrano, and I have 3 habanero, which is what you would call Scott's bonnet.
And remind me of the name. It begins with S, doesn't it? The scale in which these peppers are measured.
Oh man, I can't. Now that you asked for it, I can't remember it.
It's Scoville. Thank you.
Yes.
Who's that? JTKD. Thank you very much. Scoville. Yeah. Scotch bonnets aren't at the top, but they're pretty damn high, aren't they?
Well, then Scott's bonnet is not the same thing as habanero, because habanero is on the top.
Okay. So what are you saying? You're going to eat one?
Well, I thought that Scott's bonnet and habanero were the same thing, and if they were, then you could obtain them in your country. And should we get our donations
can someone have a Google search? Our Scotch bonnet and what was the word you used?
Habanero.
Are they the same thing?
Yeah.
That's what we need to know. Right, and so we're going to have a chili eating competition. Hang on, what's happened to Seth? Have we lost Seth? Or is he still trying to get his camera to work? We've got this. Oh, it looks promising. We might get there. So go on. What's your idea, Aaron? There's a problem with this call. Well, I won't. I forgot we've got.
I think it's the work of Satan. I blame the devil. That's what they always used to do in church. You know, whenever you'd have a technical glitch, there'd be a problem with the sound system. They'd be like, "Oh, the devil doesn't like it when you step on his toes, people." And of course,
Seth, what did you make of Reverend? What was her name? Justin Peters, who was responsible for the prayers that sent Hurricane Isaac offline with Tampa. And she went on national television to praise the good Lord for diverting it from the Republican conference.
Yeah.
And to send it to New Orleans again.
You know, but prayers only have a retroactive success rate, have you noticed? It's like when Rick Perry, the governor in Texas, was going through last year one of the worst droughts in the state's history. I mean, it was horrible. Crops are destroyed, and people are just in absolute misery. And they're praying, please pray. We're having a national day of prayer for rain. And of course, you got to figure if the omnipotent creator of the universe was actually listening, boom, rain happens like that. But it was like 9 months. And then when it finally happened, people were thanking Jesus, and I'm like, what was he on the back nine at Augusta? What was he doing? Was he playing Parcheesi somewhere? What took him so long?
We are not to question the mind of God. He works in mysterious ways.
I'm seeing
Can I just say, it looks as if we're being featured at the moment. So if you are watching from outside, so to speak, do come and join us. This is the end of a 24-hour charity event in support of Médecins Sans Frontières, Doctors Without Borders. Do come and join us. You can even call in if you wish. We're talking about issues of religion at the moment, but we've got a broad spectrum of topics that we can talk about.
I've got Dylan Hunty on the phone, and he says, "Why aren't we dragging him into the call?"
My friends, I'm probably going to make a casual exit.
Okay. If that is the case, Seth, just before you go, Aaron, he needs to send a contact request to Magic Sandwich Show. I do not have him as a contact. That's why I can't bring him in.
Oh, wow. All right.
Magic Sandwich Show, all one word. You know the score.
Sandwich Show.
Seth, can I thank you very much indeed if you are shooting off.
Okay, that's why he's not showing up as DP.
It's a real pleasure to be a part of something that is for such a word. I mean, it sounds like I'm running for Miss America, but I mean, just to be able to participate, to be invited, to see the enthusiasm, to see people all coming together to do something special, to do something tangible for a worthy organization.
You do sound like Miss America. I just want world peace.
I'm just saying, it feels good. It feels good to do something, and so to be invited to participate and to be a part of the show has been a real pleasure for me, for what it's worth. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Seth. I'll catch up with you soon, I'm sure.